Today is Thursday, February 13th. The time is 2:20. PEA and district joint negotiations are starting now. So, and just so everybody is aware, you see these lovely fancy microphones. So they can pick up sound all across the table now. So just be aware, you guys in the back, you are being recorded, just so you know. So, there you go. Okay.
Sign-in sheet is going around.
Yeah, we can do introductions again. We'll start with our side. Stephanie Yoakum, President, Polk Education Association.
Mary Ann Capizzello, Bargaining Chair, Paraprofessional, Karen M. Siegel Academy.
Lorinda Utter, Secretary Treasurer, PEA, itinerant gifted teacher, Eagle Lake, and Lake City.
Brandon Lane, Testing Coordinator, Lake Belfry Polytech.
DJ Ross, Physical Therapist, Itinerant, ESC Department.
Sandy Doyle, Elementary PE Teacher at Lake Ship.
Wilfredo Tolado, Service Unit Director, PEA.
Tony Kirk, Director for Employee and Labor Relations, Polk County.
John Hill, Deputy Superintendent, Polk County.
Michelle Townley, Regional Assistant Superintendent, Polk County Public Schools.
Brian Warren, Senior Director of Human Resource Services.
Jessica Porteous, Associate Superintendent, Polk County Public Schools. Laura McKay, Coordinator for Labor Relations and Human Resource Services for the school board.
Sharita Arrington, Senior Labor Technician for District.
Melody Butler, Principal, Spencer Dow Holland Elementary.
Melody Potter, Principal, Crystal Lake Middle School.
Deldrick Leonard, School Counselor, Jewett Middle Academy.
Althea Hagens, Property Accounting.
Kim McDermott, Paraeducator, Karen M. Siegel Academy.
Kevin Moran, Service Unit Director, Polk Education Association.
Susan Cameron, Vice President, Polk Education Association, Social Studies Teacher, Dundee Ridge Middle Academy.
Okay, well, earlier this week we were able to, you provided us your documents on February 11th, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We sent you our proposals as well. As we agreed at the last collective bargaining meeting, these were our quote-unquote final proposals. So, I don't know if you want to get started first, or if we want to get started first, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So yes, we did provide them on the 11th, and you guys provided yours this morning. And so we have been able to look at yours versus ours. And again, this is a package deal for us. So we would not sign off on one article without signing off on all of them together. So with us, it would be 3, 6, and 17. We would do all at once. We wouldn't agree to 3. We wouldn't agree to 17 in isolation. We agree to all of it, or we agree to none of it. Okay. So if we look at just going through Article 3,
yours are.
Looking at them side by side. So looking at our proposal and looking at your proposal, the differences are that the district team wants 60 minutes consecutive on the work days. We are looking at Article 3, side by side. Yeah, I think we'll save 6 for last. That's the biggest one. So looking at Article 3, side by side, the district team wants 60 consecutive minutes on a teacher workday. The PEA team has proposed 40 minutes on a teacher workday. Or 45 consecutive minutes. We would like it with the entire faculty, where the district side struck that language. And then down with the early release days, we are in agreement, except you guys struck for state testing training. And so I think we agreed at the last meeting that was, in that time frame, this is what you needed that early release day for, was to adequately train teachers with the state testing coming up in April and May. And so that would be the only reason why teachers wouldn't get that work day. And so we did want that spelled out, that early release day was specifically for testing training, nothing else. that's why we have that language in there.
We also feel that the testing training is an important component for our teachers to make sure that the training happens so that we don't run afoul of any testing anomalies. And so we agreed with you that that was important training to be had for everybody. And there are always nuances, and some training is the same, but there's always little differences every year in how things are being done. And we think it protects our teachers as much as it protects the district and makes sure that the students end up with the test where their grade counts.
So why did you guys strike that language for state testing training? Just curious.
I can go ahead and speak to that. If you
Okay,
like.
thank you.
Begin a dialogue and a conversation. I believe it was the thought process that, understanding the importance and the priority of state testing. As a management writer, we understand what that is too, but what is more, we need some latitude relative to what we do with those days as well. It felt somewhat restrictive to have that put on us, so we needed the latitude to have our own agendas for whatever we have pressing for those meetings when we have them scheduled. I think that was the
Particularly
process.
because we only have one day. I think that was really the issue. And so we were willing to, originally, that you all had 4 days, so we were really willing to increase to 6. And so with our one day, we didn't feel like it should be tied to a specific topic. We felt like that should be something that we as management should be able to determine. We don't necessarily determine what you all do on your days, and so we didn't want that in the contract for us. Yes, it is for state testing, as Brandon really articulated last time, being the coordinator. Yes, that will be one of the topics discussed, but quite frankly, if a principal needed to discuss closing out the school year, on that day, they should be able to do it. Or even if they needed to discuss spring break procedures, they needed to do it. So we wanted to be as inclusive or as least restrictive as possible for our administrators.
So what if we said a portion of that time shall be used for state testing?
We don't mind a portion, correct.
So why don't we do that?
Okay.
Then
That's
at least
fine.
we make sure that we have.
We definitely don't mind that. I think our administrators would agree that we obviously need the state testing portion in there, again, as Brendan articulated, so that will be fine.
Okay.
Somebody take notes?
Then hopefully, as we agree, then we can go ahead and get him.
So we can
done,
say-
and then we can
Yeah.
finalize them so they can be TA'd.
So we can say, and one staff development day in March, with a portion for state testing.
A portion of which will be used.
Yeah, a portion of which will be used for state testing.
Right.
And
Training.
Yes, I'm working from ours as well.
Okay. Okay.
And why not the entire faculty?
Going up to 3.3.
That's back up at 3.3.
Because I believe the argument from your side last time was that you wanted that time for culture building, to get the faculty together, and so to our side, it's a little counterintuitive to not include the entire faculty. Because what we're trying to avoid is what we hear when kindergarten is going to meet for 60 minutes here, and then second grade is going to meet for 60 minutes here, or algebra 1 is going to meet for 60 minutes here. The point of this, and I think teachers see value in getting the whole faculty together, because on regular days, you don't get to get all together with the way the time is. And so for us, that's an important piece, is that if you're going to take this time out of the teacher workday, that it be to get the entire faculty together.
Can I speak a little bit to that as an administrator? For instance, tomorrow we have a Tell Me Something Good and an icebreaker with, a story writing with the little hearts. The entire faculty will be there to start it. However, we have PLCs and breakout sessions as teachers need them tomorrow. There are some breakout sessions that aren't applicable to the coaches, to the music teacher, to the art teacher. So they're getting together with something specific for them. So to have the whole faculty in one room, the entire time.
That's not what this is meant for. This is meant for teacher work days.
days.
Tomorrow is a staff development. You can do whatever you want.
Even
to do.
on work days, that's how we operate.
But that shouldn't be how you operate on a work day. A work day is for teachers to work.
Right.
And you are getting that time as and we understand why you want it. But we don't get 90 minutes carved out of your staff development day to work.
But you got 2 extra early release days.
So, but because we're trying to get time back to our teachers, because that's the only commodity that you guys have to offer right now.
We've heard that, and that's our goal.
And so
Give what
this,
we can.
yeah, so this is what we're trying to do. And so the rationale that we heard from your side was that you wanted that little piece of our workday to get your faculty together to do stuff like those little icebreakers or a breakfast or birthdays, whatever. So we're not talking about staff development days because you guys get the whole 7.75.
But even on that, it may last 30 minutes.
Well, that's fine.
But then we could do.
Yeah. See, I think that
I just don't want to tie teachers up that don't need to be in a particular session.
I think the goal, though, is, and we see it now, there are times when we have a principal who may not need on a staff development day the whole day, and we'll give teachers some time to do work. But that's the staff development day. What we're talking about, the purpose of a work day, the purpose of that 90 minutes originally was for people to be able to do things like do a faculty meeting or something along that lines. That was the purpose of the 90 minutes. What we're trying to do now is get more time back to the teachers. And in fact, so I'm going to speak to the 45-minute component. We heard what you said, Mr. Hill, about culture building and all of that. So we felt a fair compromise would be half. You get half, we get half. And that seemed to be, to us, a fair place to come. It's half an hour isn't enough. 45 minutes gets you that little bit longer, and then we can give back 45 minutes to the employees who desperately need the time to do the work that we do. And it does cause a culture shift, if you will. It does cause, maybe we have to look a little bit about what we stand and say and what we might be able to, and we talked about this before, what we might be able to do in a school newsletter. We have, at our school, we have Preparing for Flight, which is a little newsletter they do once a week about the happenings that we need to know about in the school. So we don't have to have a meeting for those types of things because it's committed to an email that you can quickly read and assimilate the data. And so those are what we're trying to do, is to have people, and I really, really hate this analogy, so forgive me for using it, but to work smarter, not harder, to find ways to communicate with people that will help. And then when we do utilize a teacher's time or a staff's time, the staff walks away feeling as if their time had been used wisely and that they have time to do the primary mission, which is to educate our students and be prepared to educate our students.
And so that was really our big sticking point with the entire faculty on the work day. Because, again, you don't get a lot of opportunities to bring your whole faculty together. They meet in grade levels all the time. They meet in isolation all the time. On a work day, with this language, that would be, in our people's eyes, valuable to them to get together with their faculty. But that it is restrictive because you guys get to do what you want on your staff development days and all that. And the work day should be for the work that the teachers need to do, minus getting together. And we felt that 45, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more, that 45 was a compromise because it's half of what we currently do now. And, it is the length of a class period. And so you're asking your instructors, your teachers, to deliver instruction in that time frame anyway. I think that it's reasonable to...
It's an effective period of time.
That it's an effective period of time to get out information and be able to do what you need to do with your faculty, and then let them be on their way to use their day however they need to use it.
Another line of thought that I considered when I looked at the strike-through language is you'll notice that it begins that the principal may schedule and hold one faculty meeting, and it has in parentheses Article 6.5 because that already defines the terms and how we schedule what's supposed to be in place for the faculty meeting. So to me, it seemed like, why do we need a disclaimer of, with the entire faculty? Because we've already established and agreed and ratified what faculty meeting is in Article 6.5. So the language we're discussing here overlaps in Article 6.5. And so I feel like it was one more thing. It was an addition. So it's for that reason that it was struck as well. We'd already established what the protocol was for faculty meetings in the existing language of 6.5.
Well, and I think what we were trying to avoid and spell out very clearly here is that we get agendas for this 90-minute time where, 30 minutes is going to be for here, and then you're going to go here for 30 minutes. And so we wanted to make sure that it was specifically on the teacher workday, that it wasn't just in isolation for a content area or a grade level, that it really was bringing the entire faculty together. And so because of how this language has been used by school-based admin with agendas, they haven't been really, I think, reading to the intent. Don't use that one. I've already written on this one. They haven't really been using it to the intent, I think, that the contract lays it out. And so we wanted to make sure that it really, truly was, if you're using that time to bring your faculty together, that it was one meeting, consecutive 45 minutes, that the entire faculty's there.
Right. And 6.5 doesn't seem to speak to a work day. It seems to speak to the principal specifying a specific day for regular faculty meetings, but not necessarily defining it as the work day. This is almost like the way we used to be able to do it. On a Tuesday, once a month, you had enough paras that could cover everybody. That was decades ago. So this doesn't, to me, really sound like it speaks to that work day expectation of a faculty meeting.
And I think it also goes back to the intent of the language. And I think that you'll notice that this is becoming different for us now in terms of maybe being a lot more clear, a lot more specific in the language. Because when we agreed to things, there was an intent on the language that may or may not have survived very long in terms of how it was being implemented. And so I think that that's why we're trying to be clear about what we think the time is meant to use and what we've been told, what we were told and what we were just told at the last meeting. The importance of the time was that culture building, faculty building, being able to if there were procedures that needed to be explained or something that was coming down the pike that we all needed to know that wasn't easily put into an email format. Let's face it, there are some things you don't necessarily, when we're talking safety, for example, we're not laying all of that out necessarily in a document that could end up out when we're really just wanting people to know here's the safe word or here's this or here's that. But that's the purpose. And the purpose, and the other thing that has happened is we have had schools where the 90 minutes has been broken up over the course of the day. 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. And the problem with that is you go into a room and you're kept for 30 minutes, but that constant movement, that passing time, if you will, ends up eating up more of the day than the original 90 minutes. And it was never intended to be that way. It was intended to be a block. You had a block of time. Not periods of time, but a block of time. That was the original intent of the language. And again, over the course of time, things have changed, and that does end up pulling away from time that could be spent more wisely.
Well, let me say this. Originally, as you said, Stephanie, your teacher said that they wanted more time back. And so in doing that, that's why we reduced it or are willing to reduce it from 60 minutes to 90 minutes so that it is an additional 30 minutes of time that teachers can do with whatever they'd like. However, we do feel that trying to regulate the 60 minutes that we have or the 45 minutes that we have whatever those minutes are is, again, a managerial right, almost like the same time and the same days or that we're talking about in 3.4. So with that time, we should be able to, as Mrs. Butler has said, if we want to have breakout sessions with some of our staff, or if we, not necessarily, I agree with you on the fact that they should not be moving in the 30 minutes and all that. However, if there's a breakout session that Mrs. Butler would like to have during that time, then she should be able and allowed to do that. That current language that says with the entire faculty is very restrictive and would not allow our administrators to have that time. So the concession was, hey, you can have the 30 minutes if you want time. If it's truly about time, then there's the 30 minutes. That's your time. But with our 60 minutes or with the 45 that remain, then we need to do what we should be able to do.
So let's just say minutes with 45. Just play with the 45. What would you realistically do? Like, would you have 15 minutes with your entire faculty?
We could have 15, we could have 20, we could have 30. It just depends. And when I say entire faculty, there are times that, if lunchroom workers are there for that team builder, or if parents decide, hey, I'm going to be on campus tomorrow to do such and such and volunteer my time, everyone is invited to those culture building sessions, not just faculty. And, if my coaches and my music teacher, my art teacher, even my, primary teachers want to go back to their classrooms, that's giving them back more time instead of participating in, writing for informative writing that's strictly for 4th and 5th graders. They're free to go back to classroom and work, so it's actually giving them back time. But when you say faculty meeting, it's like I have to hold them the entire time.
Well, it just says up for not more than.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Then I may not be able to.
And that's why that's in there. So you get up to that time, and if you let them go early, obviously that's fine. I guess where I'm getting stuck is that it sounds like if you're going to do stations, then with that time, you wouldn't really have time to bring your entire faculty together, and then you would be making them move somewhere else?
No, in our media center, we have an ESC. I mean, it just depends on your facilities. We are all there together with a computer lab, with ASE conference room, with the GNN network, where if teachers need writing help, they may go here after we do the icebreaker. If others see that they may need classroom management help, they may be with a certain group right here. So it's just not one size fits all. We want to make the most of the time for everybody and what they need. They often give us inputs on what they need for those days, and we work to prescribe a menu for them.
But it sounds like staff development days, not teacher work days.
Right now we have
That's where I'm getting
minutes.
Stuck.
But I don't know that it matters.
It doesn't matter
what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the day is. It's our time. It's that 90 or the 60 minutes. You got the 30. We're saying, yes, you can have the 30. But regardless of what the designation is, it's the staff. It's time with the administrators for 60 minutes. So.
And not every school is Spessard Holland.
I get that.
That has all those wonderful those wonderful pieces attached to their media center. I mean, I know both of my schools, it's just the media center. All those other little rooms attached are classrooms.
I've been there. I was there for a meeting this past week, but there were so many classrooms right there attached to it that aren't going to be utilized that day that could be utilized.
Could a simple fix be adding the same language from 3.4, a portion of which will be used with the entire faculty? It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, but then you still get autonomy.
Well, I have a little bit of a different concept, that it's a block of 45 minutes inclusive of staff movement, meaning, like you said, maybe we're going to go ahead and do breakouts like Melody's talking about, but we're going to avoid the little blocks. It's a solid block of time, and it includes the time so that teachers aren't doing 15 minutes of movement here and 10 minutes of movement there, plus.
So for clarification, you're saying the movement has to be within the 45 minutes.
Right.
Well, because right now, I mean, I saw an agenda for one of the 90 minutes that they had from 8 to 8:30. They were doing this, but then from 8:45 to, and so they have 15 minutes of not really the 90.
Do you think the word consecutive gets at that. Like, and I was going to piggyback on something Ms. Heather said, but also Melody to try to kind of tie together. I was the last school where I served had a very small media center and a relatively. The design wasn't well in the cafeteria for faculty meetings or gatherings. So I remember a time on a work day when we had 90 minutes, where I had my 3rd through 5th grade teachers come in for the first 30, everybody the 30 in the middle, and then dismissed 3rd through 5th, and then kept K2 when we were looking at some specific metrics that were relevant to those grade levels. So I get what you're saying. If you say just one and that it's consecutive, I think those, to me, in my interpretation, those words really leverage on you shouldn't be chunking it out, like the example that you gave, that it should be all-inclusive of one-time chunk. But you're right, all of our schools are very different in facilities, and sometimes, you know, where, I mean, you think about even some of our larger high schools, getting everybody in one location. Okay, you could sit in the auditorium, but that's not really a place where you could have a table and do some work if you needed to think about something or write something down. So I think if we can stress that it's one faculty meeting, so it doesn't get chunked out, and that it's consecutive in time, that should eliminate some of those chunked out examples that you've given.
Because then, I mean, if we're truly using the and with the consecutive, that would, I mean, that is including of.
I think it captures what your ask is, and it gives the flexibility to determine the type of things they may need to do at various schools within the.
So we would say the faculty meeting or the 45 minutes be in the whatever place at 8 o'clock, and we will be in that place till 8:45. And then what you choose to do, 2nd grade, stay, 3rd grade, we've said your piece, go ahead. But it's still a 45-minute block of time that gets used, and then they're dismissed to go on their way to do for the day. So it doesn't.
Decided on the 45 to 60. So it's our provision, or it's our stance that it's still 60. That was our proposal to you. So are you saying that you're?
Our proposal is 45. Yeah.
I know that.
We're
So
that's a sticking point for us.
It's a half and half thing for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's half the time we felt that you got half, and then our staff got that half back.
You got to keep half, and we got half back.
So go ahead.
No, that's the rationale for the 45. Is that out of the 90 that's currently in play, we get half of that time back. You get to keep half of that time.
Because again, as we understood, we wanted you to have the ability to team build, to have those conversations.
I appreciate the consideration, certainly. We do.
So what I'm handing out is a PowerPoint that we did just based on negotiations thus far, particularly regarding your teacher time demand. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, on the 5th page.
Can you wait until I get it?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, actually it starts on the 4th page. I don't know that we made enough copies, I'm sorry. Oh, someone down there. Pass it down.
Did they get enough down there?
Sorry. So it's actually the page that starts with past facts on teacher time. Does everyone have one?
Fast facts on teacher time.
I think it's page 4.
If you have an extra one, we need one, but otherwise we'll share.
So overall, what we've done is we've looked at the teacher contractual time, and so we've noticed that based on our numbers, it's 1,519 hours overall, right? So that's per the contract. From there, we then did how much time of that 1,500 do teachers spend in terms of total instruction. That's contractual time again. So that is 1,017 hours, 1,017.5 hours, excuse me, and that's 67% of the contractual time. So again, 67% of the contractual time is spent teaching, actually delivering instruction. So from there, we then looked at the CBA because we're talking about the time, all this time. Collaborative planning and staff development equal a total of 80.25 hours, and that totals 5.3% of the contractual time. And then our proposal, overall, the one that we sent to you today, totals inclusive of the 60 minutes instead of the 90 minutes, totals 55 hours, which is actually 3.6. So that's a reduction of about 25 hours of time. So if you look at the next page,
Could you say that amount again? I'm sorry, Tedra, my.
is my math right? Yeah. 25, well,
About 25 hours.
yeah, about 25 hours. So 80.25 hours. That's currently in the CBA. That's inclusive of PLCs, collaborative planning, and all staff development. And the 60 minutes. No. I'm sorry. That's the 90 minutes. Current CBA. And then the district proposal is 55.5, and that's inclusive of the 60 minutes. And that's a difference of 24.75 hours. Brian is my handy-dandy calculator. I'm not good with math. So again, I'm going to flip back and forth between the next two pages. So current CBA, we have a total of 360 minutes of work days. The professional development days are 1440. The early dismissal PD days are 360. These are all minutes, by the way. Collaborative planning is 1,620 minutes, and then PLCs are 1,035 minutes. So that's a total of 4,815 minutes, which equals about 80.25 hours, right? And so, again, the proposal, if we just flip it to the next page, is work days. We've reduced it to 240 work days, 240 minutes, not work days, sorry. 240 minutes, which is a reduction of 120 minutes from work days. And if you kind of look at the next three pages simultaneously, you'll see the difference in time page as well. So for the professional development, those are the same. It's 1,440 minutes of professional development based on our proposal. On the early dismissal PD, there are 120 minutes now. So remember, you got the 6 days. We gave up 2 days, and then we kept the third day, as Brandon suggested, for testing and other items that we'd like to discuss with staff. And then for collaborative planning, it's now reduced to 1,080 in our proposal compared to 1,620, and that's a reduction of 540 minutes. And then the PLCs are now reduced from 1,035 to 450 because what we're proposing is one per month, and so 45 times 10, 450. And the total there would be 55 hours. So in terms of time, oh, there it is right there, 24.75. In terms of overall time, you said that that's something that we can leverage. So again, 120 minutes from work days, 240 minutes from early dismissal days, 540 minutes from collaborative planning days, 585 minutes from PLCs. That's an overall reduction of 24.75 hours. And so what we're saying here is that, yeah, we're going back and forth about 15 minutes because we've offered to you all to reduce a total of 24.75 hours. That teachers can be back in the classroom. That's what they wanted. That's what you said you wanted for them, right? Because they needed to be back there in designing their own instruction. and doing that. So I just want to make sure I lay this on the table or put this out front to know that, yeah, we are committed to reducing the time as you wished, but we're going to stick with the 60 minutes there because overall we have reduced a significant amount of time from the contract. Have any questions about that?
No, I think probably what we need to do on this language would be to take a brief caucus.
Well,
But if
since this is a package, right? I mean, we're not agreeing to articles on isolation. I think we need to, since this is where both sides are at with Article 3, okay, we need to see where we're at in the other articles, and then we can talk about it as a package. And I think at the end, we probably want to come back together as teams and then talk about the package.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So let's go.
Table Article 3.
Yeah. So we'll save 6 for last because there's a lot in 6. Let's go to 17. And again, looking at both proposals side by side. Okay, no problem. Kevin brought them in. I printed enough
I know.
for.
I'm just wondering if
Okay. Oh.
Okay. For Sharon? Okay. Sharon's here.
No.
17.
Yeah. Okay. So if we look at 17.4 on both, you added in a applicant registration system to identify that. We're fine with that. And then the next one was looking at the Broward language at the end of 17.4-1.
What page are you on?
Page 3.
Theirs or ours?
We're looking at both side by side. So look at both side by side.
I think what they want to know is.
They're both page 3 on both. It's page 3 on both proposals.
I don't think we have yours.
I don't think we.
That's what we're looking
Okay, well, we printed out yours, so I did print out enough for you guys, so they must be at it's back there.
So that explains why
There we go.
perplexed.
Okay. We printed out yours. I figured you printed out ours. I did print extras, but they're coming.
responsible with paper. Not saying that you're not, but we are. So.
Sorry. I mean, we printed out yours, so I assumed you printed out ours.
I could tell they didn't know what you were.
Yes. Everything that we printed out is what we gave to you electronically on the 11th. So you already have this electronically. This is just the paper copy.
Okay. Go to 17.41.
So so we're if you flip back, you guys added on page 2 applicant registration system. That's fine. And then on our proposal that we had submitted to you electronically on Tuesday, because again we were submitting this as a package, and so we knew that we were sticking on a few things, but we also had to give a little. And so we know that 17 was a sticking point for you guys, And so we were good with the Broward language, and then we had taken out what was previously proposed. Because again, this was a package deal. So if we were going to get on the planning time that we want, we were willing to give on 17. And so when looking at your proposal, you had added a few things to the, like a teacher. And Laura, I did catch one. I usually don't catch her, but it's a teacher, not an teacher. So a teacher, we're fine with that. Who qualifies for instead of meets, again, we're fine with that. Who qualifies for the hardship. We had definition because we had taken it out of the Broward language. We're fine with deleting definition and putting transfer in. We're okay with that from you. We wanted you guys to talk to us a little bit about what you added, though. Can you explain?
Because that thing was going to hit my desk.
Please explain.
The thought process here was, okay, so you've got someone that we've approved for hardship transfer. Okay. So at that point in time, then what we've said is once during that current school year, the last time we were at the table, we agreed that we were going to get them an interview at one of the positions that they select. The previous language, I think if I remember right when we look back over it, was like 10, there was, 10 schools they select. I'll be honest with you. I think there's a more efficient way to track that. We give them one election to get an interview. They send me an email. They give me the information I've listed here in the language 5 days before it closes. They give me the position number. I'll put them on the interview list. I'll take that information, I'll drop it in the notes section of their hardship transfer so that anybody can open it up in HR and see that they've been provided that opportunity for their interview on that specific date and that specific position. So, there seemed to be a process of tracking the 10 schools that they select, and I just didn't see the need for that. Let's just be efficient and give me one shot, tell me what it is, and we'll go from there. Document it once per school year and go from there, because the hardship was for a year only anyways. So that was the thought process.
Well, and we were looking through this language, and it didn't say anywhere that they specifically could only transfer once with hardship.
No. It says we'll give them an interview once. They can keep applying.
Yeah.
Because they might not get that job. They may get it right out of the gate.
But I guess where we were confused, like, let's say that I applied for hardship at the beginning of the year. For whatever reason, circumstances change, and you grant me the hardship. I get my interview, and let's say I land that job. I'm at new school, great, everything's going great, but then something else happens. There wasn't anything in the language that said they couldn't get a second hardship transfer in the year for extenuating circumstances. So should it say once per hardship transfer?
I don't have an aversion to that.
Okay.
I think actually that'll be cleaner. Brian, I think actually that'll be cleaner from our end because each one of the hardships is tracked separately.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be per year for us. If you did apply
once per hardship.
It would be
okay.
A nightmare for us to track that. So
okay.
Frankly, that'll be easier for us. If
so
you're do once per transfer.
Once per hardship transfer. Yeah. Okay. So once per hardship transfer. During the current school year.
Yeah. And if I may, just so that we can keep the record clean, the request to be considered for an interview must be, I would say, emailed.
So instead of presented,
yeah, I would rather say
must be emailed.
Because then it's time and date stamped. And
well, you've got your paper trail.
Yeah.
We also, have a paper trail of that. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
To the Senior Director of Human Resources with the position number. So then that way we're not guessing. Let's say it's 2 positions at, where do you teach again?
Dundee Ridge Academy.
At Dundee Ridge Academy. So if it's 2 positions there, we are not trying to guess which position, right? Or we accidentally put them on the wrong position or the wrong position. I'm going to say this. I'm a little warm.
You're never warm, and I was feeling warm.
My ears are a little warm. So that's an anomaly. I admit it. I know John Hill down there is probably.
I mean, I was starting to sweat, but usually I'm the one that's hot. So
But I thank you for accommodating us.
I thought you were just doing that for me, Kevin.
Normally it's really cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm like, I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I'm going to start. Okay.
Again, no less than 5 days, just because for us, we want to make sure that he has the opportunity to get it on there. He's not rushing, etc.
Okay.
So.
Well, so that was really it for 17 then.
We're okay with that.
Okay. All right, and then so 31 goes with 6, so we'll talk about that in tandem. So you had proposed to change to 31, but that goes with the lesson planning, so we'll talk about that in tandem.
I just have a silly procedural question. Of course. When that a vacancy closes, does it drop off the system, or what happens to it?
So, yeah, it's supposed to drop off the system. I want to say prior to me getting here, or we designed it so that it would now drop off the system. Because what was happening before is that I would go to pull the vacancies on RHS, and it would be an inaccurate number because we would still have old vacancies on there, et cetera. So, yes, it's supposed to then drop off, or then if a candidate is selected, it then truly drops off. Does that make sense?
But if
So in
it's
other words,
still
it
a
kind of-
vacancy, a principal could extend it.
Right, yes.
Okay,
So
so
that they
So
should-
they get a notice.
So the principal then would go in and put in an extension?
Yes.
Okay.
They have the opportunity to do
I
that.
just never understood how that all worked.
If they don't find anybody,
Do they have R6?
they
Yeah.
feel.
So they look at all the applicants prior to.
You do that in
It-
administration as well. There have
yeah.
been times where you didn't feel that you had the
I figured we would
candidate
just
with
go
the
through that.
qualifications.
Yeah.
We'll clean it
So
all
we'll
up.
extend it.
Okay, I just wondered, no one ever told me what happened when that day hit.
Yeah.
So again, you have an electronic copy of this, but this is our 6 that's coming around to you guys. Yep. I think this is the.
I don't know how to do that. I have to.
I do.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll go page by page. All right. So the first change that we see, we'll look at yours. It's your page 2, and I know our margins are a little bit bigger in the bottom, so there's one more page, so there'll be different pages, so just be aware of that. So district page 2, it's union 3, page 3. So in 6.1-2, district side, it's clarified when grades will be due for graduating seniors, which is really already a practice, so we're okay with that. So it's your page 2, our page 3. Sorry, and I know our margins at the bottom are a little bit bigger. So, yeah, 6.1-2. So we're okay with putting that in there. It's already really a practice that's done anyway with grades for seniors. So we're okay with adding that clarity in. And then we're also okay with the whenever possible within the school calendar. I think most times it's in there anyway. That's fine. We're both okay with adding the clarification for traditional block of time and actual block of time, block schedule. So we're good with 6.2. That was our language, and you guys are good with that.
You're still keeping by the end of the duty day for 6.1-2?
Yes.
I
Wait.
said it, so I just.
Yeah, no, I thought that was language we had already agreed upon, so we're both good with that. Yeah. That's on both proposals. Yeah. Okay, so we're good with at the end of the duty day of the second working day following the ending of the grading period. Okay. So your page 3, I guess it's the bottom of our page 3. We're okay with the traditional schedule and 90 minutes for a block schedule. That was our language that you guys were good with.
Which article and subsection?
Sorry, we were 6.2.
Okay.
Adding in the traditional schedule or an uninterrupted block of at least 90 minutes every other day for a block schedule. Okay.
Can you just tell the article?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Yep. I'll do both just to make sure everybody's clear.
Not 6.2-11, just
Yeah. Yeah, just 6.2. We had added in the clarifying of if you're on a traditional schedule versus a block schedule. So 6.2-11, we had already agreed previously in the fall to that title change. Still fine. All right, 6.3, let's go, guys. Okay, 6.3, planning time. With you adding daily in that spot, we don't care, that's fine. It doesn't change the intent of the language on either end, so we're okay with if you want to add daily there instead of after planning, that's fine. So let's go to that one that's in gray, the good faith effort. So that was language that I captured at the table last time. And you guys just added in spelling out what an IEP was and what a BIP was. And we're fine with changing where into in which. That doesn't make really a difference to us too much. So we're good with that. We have both decided to strike through original 6.3A and 6.3B. But we both have different new A's and B's. Okay. So I need some clarification from your language. You guys have stricken through our 5 days of self-directed plan time, and you have put 4 45-minute planning periods. But then down in your new A, you have principals may direct 1 collaborative planning per week and 1 professional learning community PLC per month. Okay, so as I was looking at the calendar that was provided for next year and looking at the way that works out, just for clarification on your language, if we're getting 4 self-directed days a week on the weeks that are short for whatever reason, staff development or just a holiday, do we get our 4 and that week's left untouched?
So really, the calendar was just a visual for that. This, when it gets down into 6.3-1, and it clarifies short weeks, then yes, the teachers would get all 4 days. So on those short weeks that happen like 19 times a year, all of that, there would not be collaborative planning or PLC scheduled during that week. Okay. Going back to the concept of the 5-day week.
The full 5-day student contact.
Yeah, the full 5-day student contact week. Then you'd.
And how many weeks are those?
I believe that's like 24.
Okay.
You'd have the collaborative planning always on those 5-day student contact weeks, but then only once a month would be a PLC.
So then would
but
that
the PLC would have to occur
the collaborative time, or then that week would we get 3?
That week you get 3.
So 1 week where they got 3.
It'd be just that
Because
one, whatever full 5-day student contact week that was selected to have the PLC. It would only be that week. So
that wasn't clear in the language that you said.
I think that's what
I thought that's what the intent on your side would be. I just needed to make sure that we were clear.
Yeah, I was trying to
talking about it.
Build off your B, but it was. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then that's where it kind of was the additional clarifier in the 6.3-1.
Just as, because I know once we're done talking about this, we probably will go into caucus and both sides, right, as we're talking about this as a package. So just for clarification and to see where you guys are at with this, on your side, would you be willing to, on one of that 5-day week where the PLC is going to be, would you be willing to say, instead of collaborative, we're taking that day as PLC day, to where the teachers still get 4?
I think we can talk about it, but
let's really think about that.
Yeah,
let's think about it.
Yeah, something to consider.
So instead of them getting 3 days that week, they still get their 4. Just talking, just seeing where we're at with this, how much wiggle room both sides are willing to do on this.
I think there is some concern just from how many weeks are short weeks. Like really, when you and I'll be honest, like that didn't fully. As I started count and registering, like we feel it this time of year. I think I said this last time because of all the 3-day weekends and things. But there really are, many weeks throughout the year, whether it's through early release or staff development or work day or a holiday. That are
Well, the
short
early
weeks.
release work days wouldn't really count as a short week, though, because those 6 out of the 7 would be work days now. Like, the teachers would get that time in the afternoon. So, like, and work days currently don't count into the short week. It's
On
just
our
staff development and holidays.
On our original proposal, we were honoring those for our teachers.
Okay.
Because, you just, at school level, it just feels like you're just trying to squeeze that much more work into a shortened week, right?
Yeah.
So in our original proposal, that was what was there. But when that part wasn't agreed upon, then we came back to really looking at those weeks.
I was going to say something, but I'd rather caucus with them first.
Okay. All right, so we will table this section.
So it's the short week that you're concerned about. What about the 4 and 5?
So I was just seeing where you guys were at as we go and talk about this with our team. If on the week that you want to do the PLC, if you would be willing to swap out the collaborative to have the PLC, and so that on your proposal that the teachers would still get the 4 self-directed. Does that make sense? So instead of taking 2 of their days on that full week, that you would still only take 1.
But then you're saying shortened weeks, such as early release or such as workday week.
Yeah. Well,
You're not
currently,
really-
right now, the way this is run and the way the language has been interpreted on the district side is that, like, when you have a work day or an early release work day, that's not considered a shortened week because you're getting that day of planning or that early release time of planning. So currently, the way the district has interpreted that language is that principals can still, with the language right now, principals can still get the PLC and the collaborative time. It's only on the staff development, currently with our working language now, is on staff development or like on next week when we have President's Day, or this week when we have the staff development on Friday, that currently now, like, principals should not be holding a PLC this week because they get a whole day of staff development, even though there's some people I'm going to talk to you about. And then next week, because it's a short holiday, because it's a holiday shortened week, PLCs should not be in existence next week. So that's currently what we're working under now. So, but if let's say Friday was a work day on the 14th and it wasn't staff development, principals could still hold a PLC this week. That's currently how the district has been interpreting this language. So that's what I was wondering, if on those full 5-day weeks, if you would be willing to swap out based on you guys saying that they shall get 4 self-directed. So on the week that you want to hold the PLC, would you be willing to swap out that collaborative time so they still get 4 on your proposal? Because it wasn't clear to us. It kind of contradicted itself. So I wanted some clarification as we go and talk in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything with ours? I mean, ours hasn't changed. That part hasn't changed for us, so. Okay, so we'll go on to 633. We're not there. So 633. You guys are good with our traditional or uninterrupted block of 90. That's just specifying same in 6.3-4. That's our language you guys were good with. We're okay with the titles that we had added in the fall with Travis and Ridge in 6.35 and 6.36. And then 6.39 is the next change. So again, the stuff in blue is what we had agreed to in the fall. So we're okay with you guys adding in how to calculate that average of 45 minutes. We're okay with that. We're okay with striking during and adding for, not a big deal. But we're have a little pause when we're talking about changing must to should. Should is a very big wiggle room word. And so I think that in these days, people are already stressed with testing. I think that they must have that average. It's not saying a continuous block. We know that we need to be flexible during state testing windows. There's a lot going on. But I think we must be able to still receive that average.
And in talking to Brandon, who's the testing coordinator, it can be done. It's just not always done at every school. Some schools take the time to make sure it's done and some don't, and it really needs to be done.
And so our sticking point there is we want must to be returned instead of should.
The reason why we did should, if you look at that calendar that we provided, the last 3 work weeks in May, number one, the last 3 work weeks in May, we wouldn't have any mandated planning from us. So no collaborative planning, no PLCs that week. And if you also thought we agreed to, hold on for 1 second, get it together.
You buying everybody lunch now?
On the verge.
Check them up.
They can go in on it together.
DJ and Sharitha can
I want to thank you
that.
both.
Oh, I thought you meant all of us. I'm sorry.
DJ and Sharitha can split that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'll agree to that. That's okay. I'll strike what I was going to think.
So you guys are okay with must?
Okay. Yep. We're good.
All right. The next one is 6.7-1 under duties. If you want to add state back in, doesn't matter to us. So it would read state standards for the school level instead of just standards for the school level. And 6.7-2B, that was language that we had agreed to at the table in the fall with changing food service to school nutrition and guidance to school counselor. If you look just under high school, before the 6.7-4, we're okay with adding in the reference to Article 10.4-3, referencing this Florida statute for the Placement Review Committee and procedures to remove a child from your classroom.
That was just an internal note.
Yeah, and we can add. Oh, okay.
Just for today.
Oh, gotcha. Well, okay. But
Tonight.
Fine.
Go ahead. Let's add it.
I'm fine with adding it. I think it's helpful to show in the contract. We're good with that. Okay, so we didn't have any. You accepted the duties because that's straight from the statute. So in 6.7-4B, if you want to just call it membership, we're fine with that. If you go to B, number 2, down in the paragraph part, if you want to render a decision, is fine. Just clean up language, cleaning it up. So with the gray area for A, we're okay if you just want to not label it A. We want this all committees should be done during pre-planning. We think waiting to the end of the first 9 weeks, you're missing a full quarter of these committees being in place. And there are times, even without the placement review committee, even though there are times in the first quarter where you might need to remove a child and this committee be convened. This should be done before students come in day one. And with the other committees, it says that they will meet 4 times a year. That's already existing language.
Right.
If these committees are not even developed until the end of the first 9 weeks, then essentially you're not meeting once a quarter. And I think that's what the intended language that's already existing is meant to be there. So I don't understand why this can't be part of the pre-planning week where you get your committees in order and so that everybody knows what they're working on and what they're doing so that the school can start operating smoothly.
So to have a discussion, because there's got to be somewhere in between, let's hope. The original language was you wanted all the committees in place during the pre-planning days. Mm-hmm. And with all due respect, our pre-planning days have been leaned on quite heavily with what we've given up. Okay, so we need a little latitude to not just exclusively be doing committee selection and belaboring an agenda that might be weighted more heavily toward, another agenda item that would be triaged at a higher level of importance than just committee selection. So what we tried to do was to select a period of time that would allow some managerial latitude to still accomplish the same end. To your point, though, it does say that they'll meet 4 times a year, so the end of the first 9 weeks would preclude that. So there has to, in my mind, maybe we need to back it up and say within the first 45 days, because I believe the 9 weeks are 90 days. Is that right?
No,
45.
45. So I would,
somewhere in between,
with
because we
maybe
don't wanna,
in the first 2 weeks of students
we
being
need
present.
to hold those pre-planning days where we can get
Yeah.
stuff done that we need to get done. And with the placement review committee, I would argue, heaven forbid, if that happened in the first few weeks of school, the statute's going to trump, and we're going to have to get that in place anyways. But that was the intent. Your point is well taken at the end of the first 9 weeks.
I
So
think
maybe
that's
if
a
we
long
can find a
time.
place somewhere in between. I wanted administratively to try to have some latitude with those pre-planning days.
What about August 30th?
End of August?
That's what I just.
Last student contact day in August.
Last student contact day in
You're all good
August?
with that? Great.
Okay.
All right.
Bless you.
You good with that?
One thing I want to just put on the table while we're discussing time. Time is going to be super contentious, right? We're going to caucus over 15 minutes, a half hour, right? And what I just heard the district say was you guys have a lot to do in that first week of pre-planning. Mm-hmm. But when I look at the calendar, it always seems like administrators have a lot to do, and to me that makes me feel like, well, I don't have a whole lot to do. But when I look at this calendar, teachers have 1 day to work in their classrooms. We're arguing about whether they should have 60 minutes or 45 minutes taken from them on that 1 day to get their classrooms ready before kids show up to see this classroom on orientation day. And that's something that we really need to be aware of. Everybody in this system's time is valuable. Everybody in this system needs to make choices over what to do with their time. Now, these teachers on this week, a lot of them are dying to get their key weeks before. Some of them probably wouldn't even take summer vacation. Not that that's on the table. But that's something that we need to keep in mind. And I'm done, but I just want to throw that out there.
Well, Brandon, let me say this. We're not saying that your time isn't valuable. We are not saying that the administrator's time is more valuable. We're saying during that week, just like you're trying to prepare, administrators are as well.
I know.
And so I think it's a team effort. And so we're trying to be mindful of your time, and we're, at least, I would say, at the very least, we're trying to give as much time back as we can for teachers to be in their classrooms and planning accordingly so that the students will benefit from that without or with trying to follow state mandates, etc.
Okay. All right, so you guys will turn the page. We're still talking about letter B under the 6.7-4. Number 3. We're okay with you guys striking through a working and just saying a member with knowledge of that plan. We're okay with that change. The intent doesn't change. It just kind of cleans it up a little bit. We're fine with that. And then you guys are proposing to strike through C and just call it A. Again, that's fine. Doesn't matter. So we're predominantly, I say predominantly because there's a few things we do want to talk about changing, but we're predominantly okay with 1 and 2 there. What we would like number 1 to read as is whenever possible, the teacher withholding consent will provide documentation to the placement review committee that demonstrates the establishment of reasonable classroom rules that treat all students equitably, all your language, and then striking out that last phrase prior to withholding a consent to readmitting the student. Because statute is clear that the teacher has the right to remove that kid, and then that triggers, if the principal or the parent doesn't agree for whatever reason, then that triggers the placement review committee convening, right? And so within that 5 days when the placement review committee convenes, then whenever possible, the teacher withholding consent will provide this following documentation. Because even when our members call and ask about removing a student, we tell them, it's the burden of proof is on you to provide documentation of why this kid needs to be removed. That's just the way it is. If you don't provide documentation and the committee doesn't rule in your favor, you can appeal it to the superintendent per statute, but it's your job to provide that proof. And so you, as a teacher, if you're wanting to remove a student, need to provide all that documentation. We get it. And what we're wanting to do is, and we like the way you laid that out because we think across the district, it does make it more standardized, right? So that it's not happening at Polytech a different way than it's happening at Dundee, right? So this kind of provides guidance to everybody involved on how this committee should function.
So say your suggestions again.
So the suggestion in subsection 1, we want to strike through prior to withholding consent because that doesn't really line with the statute. The teacher gets to remove the kid. But then if the principal or the parent or whoever doesn't agree with that removal, then that's when the placement review committee is convened. So we want that last phrase to be stricken through. And then how we want it to read is whenever possible, the teacher withholding consent will provide documentation to the placement review committee that demonstrates the establishment of reasonable classroom rules, and then it's how you read. Will provide documentation to the placement review committee that demonstrates, and then it picks up with what you guys wrote. With the last phrase, prior to withholding consent, that being stricken. In number 2, and I think you actually have more extensive notes than I do on number 2.
So we would like to say if a teacher is withholding consent to readmitting a student with a plan, the LEA or staff member with knowledge of the student and their plan shall, when available, provide to the placement review committee available pertinent information, period. Such information may include items such as
shall, when available, provide the placement review committee pertinent information.
With available pertinent information. Period. Next sentence. Such information may include items such as a cum review, behavior data, communication logs, etc. And we could say to include but not limited to, if you'd prefer to add it that way. But we do see the value in there being available data, but we don't want to micromanage what that data might be. And the other conversation we had is for some students, this removal comes after a long period of time of issues. And so you may have a tremendous amount of data. And with some students, it can sometimes happen very rapidly if their behavior is so egregious as to be the type of student like Mr. Hill has dealt with in those special placement types of issues. So, but we do like the idea of giving people an idea of what data might be looked at, so that again, we're talking about having that consistency in the county. PEA has always been very good about talking to teachers when they're in this situation. In fact, there have been times I've encouraged teachers not to put something in until they have some time, and we've talked through even sometimes just rudimentary data keeping, hashtags, that kind of thing, so that when you do go and go to make this move, you can say this is happening 3 out of 5 days a week, 5 out of 5 days a week. So we see the value in having that information to have a good decision being made, and then to assist the county as they're looking for maybe a better placement. But we don't necessarily like the term just a summary review of what, that's so nebulous as to what that would look like. Somebody's going to write 17 pages and somebody else might give you 4 sentences. We like the idea, and we like the idea of it being varied data that might be available.
Marianne, would you read that sentence one more time, please?
Do you have it in
Such.
No, we were just writing on it and taking notes, so we don't have this electronically on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it starts with your first. If a teacher is withholding consent to readmitting a student with a plan, the LEA or staff member with knowledge of the student and their plan shall provide, when available, to the Placement Review Committee available pertinent information, period. Such information may include items such as
May include
yes.
available items.
May include items such as cum review, behavioral data, communication logs, etc. If you want to just go etc.
What was after behavior data?
Communication logs.
Etc.
Yeah.
So can I ask for clarification?
Yeah.
Really, I'm trying to understand intent. Whenever possible seems soft to me. So I'm trying to understand what happens if I'm getting a call and the teacher is exasperated. They've tried everything, but maybe they don't have any of those pieces, but we're still going to withdraw. And we're still
Well,
gonna
they
withhold their consent.
statutorily have the right to
Yeah.
remove the student.
But that's when the Placement Review Committee gets convened. And
Right.
So
so,
then they can make the decision if the
Yes.
committee elects.
yes.
Right, and the committee can then look
Say
at the
no,
circumstances.
you don't have interventions in
Exactly.
place,
Right.
you have to call it the
That's the
committee.
committee's determination. So,
And it-
according to statute, the kid has to be removed.
Right.
That's very clear in statute.
Yeah.
So
And
when that teacher, sorry,
That's okay.
when the teacher requests, "Hey, I need John out of my room," like it triggers this whole thing. So the principal, and
And the data
Sorry.
may be available from the standpoint that if this is something that's been happening, I may have, been gathering data to have a BIP. I may be having a 504 with accommodations. I may have data to give you. Two things can be. It can be so egregious that this, and we've seen that happen, where a student really physically hurt somebody in a very short period of time, and that movement is requested. We've seen it happen. We've actually seen it happen where somebody felt very threatened by a parent and asked for the student to be removed. There are all kinds of circumstances. But at the end of the day, I think the clear thing is that the more data you have, the better, the stronger your case is going to be. And so this does two things. Number one, it talks about the fact that there should be data. It gives some ideas about what types of data might be helpful. And then it also sets the expectation of a standard. So the committee, the more you give the committee, the more likely you are to have success in what we need to have happen. Because at the end of the day, the goal is twofold. It's to help the teacher be able to run their classroom smoothly, and it's to be able to move that student to a place where their education can go on without with as little disruption as possible. So it keeps those two things in mind, in our opinion.
Well, and in my experience, if there are, when those egregious situations happen, I have not received pushback from a principal removing the kid. And so usually, if it's something physical or threatening, I mean, that kid is removed. We haven't really had that much issue with that. What we have seen is maybe the principal does want to remove the kid, but the parent's giving pushback. And really, the placement review committee, this is a way to protect everybody involved, especially when you do have a parent that may not agree with that decision. You know, that really kind of takes the onus off the principal, and it takes the onus off the teacher, because the committee is looking at all the data and then reviewing where the best location for this child is. So just want to put that out there. But this kind of lays out a good framework for when people, because the statute isn't clear on how this committee really, what they really look at, but I think it would be good as a district to have that kind
And
of
I'll tell you where I came from as this came to my mind, and I suggested this, is if you think of our EPCs, and you think at the end of our EPCs, when we talk about the fact that if you're going to challenge, you have to have evidence, and we have a list of potential evidences. This is a list of potential evidences. This is a list of things that will help the team make a better decision for the student and for the teacher. And so that's really why we wanted to clarify it and make it a more substantial piece than just a very broad word called a summary. What am I summarizing?
We're good.
So,
Okay. Okay. All right.
Can I ask one
Yeah.
other thing? Would you also consider, after like the cumulative review, academic / behavioral data?
Sure.
Because I think that was one piece that Dr. Steinke had recommended, that kind of in the process of us being more specific, it looks like it got omitted.
So students' academic and behavioral needs.
Yeah, so we could just put academic in front of the behavioral that we already had. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, just where you had it, I think it's fine, but just to still
that makes
acknowledge
sense.
that piece too.
Okay. All right, and then 6 point. Oh, any other? Sorry.
So it's just academic behavior?
Academic / behavioral data.
Kind of good.
Yeah. So and then 6.7-5, since we agreed we would do the last student contact day in August, we'll replace that there. Okay. And we're okay with the strike-throughs that you had put forth with the placement review committee shall only meet when necessary per Florida statutes, and minutes from this committee shall be maintained. We're fine with that. So moving on to 6.9. We're okay with your additions. So I'll read it out. There was all right, so we're okay with your additions. So, because it really doesn't change the intent of where we're going, it just kind of outlines a few things that lesson plans should include. Actually, because it is a legal document if it were to go to court, for documentation purposes. So 6.9, lesson plans. The parties agree that instruction requires thoughtful preparation. The development of lesson plans by and for the teacher is a professional responsibility. However, a teacher's planning and preparation may be different based on personal style, professional needs, student needs, and experience in the classroom. I didn't like how the semicolon was there, so I actually put a period there after classrooms and got rid of that second however and just capitalized plans. So plans are to be used as a guide to fulfill the state standards and district's instructional objectives for student achievement. Plans should include strategies and accommodations for students with disabilities and English language learners if needed. Remediation and enrichment and the type of progress monitoring should be included if needed. As such, administrators shall not require that lesson plans be in a particular format. Administrators also shall not require the posting or storage of lesson plans in a particular place or manner. A principal or principal's designee may request teachers to submit a copy of their lesson plans, and we're okay with us striking outlines, because plans are plans, however they're doing it. With a copy of their lesson plans at the end of the teaching week, we're okay with the last day of the teaching week, and it's fine. The end of the teaching week, or we're okay with that, or at the end of a particular unit. It just kind of makes it a compound sentence there. Doesn't change the intent. The teacher's plans are to be used as a guide in order to fulfill the county's instructional objectives and to assist the teacher in conducting a planned instructional program. Current lesson plans shall be available in the classroom for inspection at all times. Teachers shall not be routinely required to submit a copy of their lesson plans, and again, striking outlines, it's all the same, to the site administrator unless required by Article 6.9.2, which is where if they're having trouble, if they're a Category 1, or if they're on an IAC or a PDP, or if they hold an overall needs improvement unsat. And we're okay with adding in Article 31, because that's really just straight out of the statute. And I think it does provide more clarity with this language, because currently we have MOUs for planning time in our turnaround schools if we're adjusting their plan time, like we do for a lot of them. They have the 5 days, and then the principal has 5 days, and so we pay for that additional. That's in an MOU. We're okay with that language in Article 31, adding the statute language in. So we're good with the lesson planning language. So I believe we are really talking about the two things that we are in disagreement on are, to recap, in Article 3, the 60 and the 45 minutes. That's a disagreement in Article 3. And then in Article 6, the way we're laying out self-directed plan time. So those are really the two disagreements that we have between Article 3 and Article 6. It seems like we're getting close. So it is almost 3:45. Tedra says we need to, you got to go at 5 today, that's fine. So do we want to come back by 4:15? Sure. Or sooner, if we're done sooner? Yeah. So do you want to?
We'll knock if we're done sooner, so that we're not sitting around waiting, thinking the other one's not done yet.
So we're going to caucus in my office, and so you guys will be where you normally are. So whoever's done first will come knock. If not, we'll come back at 4:15. Okay? All right. District PEA negotiations, February 13th, 2020. Resuming at 4:25 p.m. Okay, so coming back, seems like we have an agreement. So on Article 3, we were willing to give 60 consecutive minutes if in Article 6 we got what we had proposed to you in sidebar. And so what we have proposed to you in sidebar that you have accepted is the principal may have up to one of these 45-minute blocks per week designated for collaborative planning, professional learning community. This isn't a faculty meeting, one per month, or other data gathering planning intended to increase student achievement. We have, again, agreed to strike through because you're only getting the one now instead of the two. The remaining 4 45-minute planning periods for a traditional schedule or an uninterrupted block of at least 90 minutes every other day for a block schedule shall be used for the teacher by the teacher solely for self-directed plan time and that is existing language. And then in 6.3-1, during the weeks when there is a full staff development day, student early dismissal staff development day, or a shortened week, teachers will still have 4 days of self-directed planning that week. And then with the compromise that will give you the 60 on the workday. Those were the 2 sticky points. So our team says yes.
Just now have to fix the language so we can TA
so we can
and
TA it. So Laura, did you clean up? I know you were working on cleaning up some things. Okay. So instead of me going back through, can you just send those to me? Yes. And then we'll review them real quick, and then we can print. And while Laura's doing that, I also want to say that we were very happy about the lesson planning language. That in and of itself is going to give back a tremendous amount of time to our people. The professional autonomy and the respect that you just gave our folks is awesome.
Don't do that.
You'll have us all doing it.
That's something we've been working for a very long period of time, including when we entered into the what do you call them? The meetings where we tried to come together and we didn't quite get there, and so
Workload reduction.
Yeah.
Workload reduction. Yes, and so So that's what I'm just saying. It's been a long time we've been having this discussion, and so thank you for working with us to do what we've heard and what you've heard from your teachers.
Well, our superintendent and our team heard loud and clear what our teachers wanted, what they needed. And at the end of the day, we know, sitting at this table, that we're all in this together. Yep. And we absolutely want our teachers to feel supported and valued 100%. And we appreciate the respect and the mutual respect and collaboration and the value that we've all been shown. Because, again, we're a we. And when we work together, that's when we can make a difference for our students and one another.
We'd be remiss if we didn't say we appreciated the conversation about the mill that was at the last work session, because that is how we're going to find sustainable revenue to be able to raise salaries for all of the district's employees. So thank you for that as well. We stand ready to work with you to pass that mill.
Give me the sign.
Hold on. I'm just checking everything real quick.
Yep, I'll lock that my Saturdays.
As long as I can get down by 5, so I can
Yeah. We had a large group of people who every Saturday for the half-cent sales tax renewal, we were at a different corner throughout holding signs every Saturday.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. That's good. So in 6.38, we needed to make sure that language mirrors Article 3. Oh, no, you did. Sorry. With a portion. Okay, no, we're good. Sorry. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. I made a note on mine to make sure that they mirrored each other.
Whenever we set into the first 9 weeks of the portion or whatever.
Okay.
Portion used for.
So, since should was already additional language, should I erase that since that's already new language and just keep must? Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay. And so since 6.3-9 is all new, I'm going to get rid of the strikes since that's all new language. So if you look at 6.3-9, even from our TA, because that's not existing language currently.
So we're saying
And
that
so-
it's all new language, it's all underlined.
I'm just going to get rid of the strikes.
Oh.
Does that, you see what I'm saying? Because it's all new language, it's not in our existing contract.
So we're not working back and forth on it anymore, it's the final language.
Yeah, before we print. Because that's not currently in our contract. Does that, does that make, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm just, instead of going back and forth, we're just showing, okay.
I'll do it on 17 too now that you're doing it.
Okay, thank you. B is fine. I'm going to underline reference Article 10.4-3 since that's new in that article. And I'm going to take away committee under 6.7-4 under Part B because that's new language and I'm going to do the same thing. Must render a decision. I'm doing that all through 6.7-4. Any strike throughs because it's new language. I'm just deleting the strike throughs.
You're working from yours, though, right?
I'm working from what Laura just sent me.
Okay.
So anything that was stricken through that's new language doesn't need to be strike. Have a strike through.
You said 6.7?
In 6.7-4 with the placement review committee, since that's all new language, anything that has a strike through doesn't need it. Okay, thank you. No, I haven't printed it yet. I'm cleaning it up real quick. Because if it's new language, we don't need the strike throughs. Oh, that's Article, yeah, we can actually go ahead and start this. This was Article 31 that we were good with, so we'll go ahead and start this.
You're going to start both? Or one?
Yeah, we'll start both, that way they just end. They'll start with me and end with Mary Ann, then we'll give one to you.
Can you just do both?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so again with 3, I'm gonna delete with the entire faculty because that was not existing language.
What number?
Wait.
So the first open print, IEP.
Oh yeah, because it's a paren within a paren, so that should be okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In math, it would be a bracket.
I remember something.
Okay. All right. 6 is good, or 17 is good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I have them just in the front. Okay. No, it happens.
Nothing's made around here.
We can write it in if you want, hand write it in.
Which one?
Because it's just the editorial.
Where?
If you want to look at this is 17.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Okay. Here, I'll change it. It shall be designated as 6. Okay. I just wrote it in and then initialed. And then I'll make sure that I add in the as here. 6, Okay, so, sorry, this is not.
He's reviewing.
Oh,
No, that can go.
yeah, 6 can go.
Are you done reviewing?
Okay.
He's reviewing, Brian's reviewing 17.
Okay.
The last piece is coming around. There'll be 2. Number 6 is coming. Yeah. 17 is working its way around. Mr. Hill has it right now.
We've got 3 in.
The good news is it's only 2 that have that. The other ones that went through were only 1-pagers. So, you didn't miss anything. Good catch, Tony.
Yeah, you did. While we're doing the exciting part of signing all this stuff, guys, I thank you again for coming out. We appreciate your support through the whole process. I hope that you come out to Lake Eola Park this Saturday for our Central Florida rally. Billy Townsend is speaking. He's one of the speakers. With a good list of speakers and music and events from 1 to 3 at Lake Eola Park in Orlando. We're handing out gas cards if you sign up once you get there for the Ed Activist or any other action, and you'll see the people in VET. Be on the lookout for my legislative update on Friday for those details too.
Yeah, we
Hope
still
to
have
see you guys there.
Still have a lot of session to get through, folks. To
We gotta
stay
keep the pressure
engaged.
on these legislators because we're just past the halfway mark. And there's some good stuff, but there's some not so good stuff. So stay vigilant. You got Bill, you got questions? District
tell him we're
PEA
up?
negotiations end with a tentative agreement at 5:08 p.m. February 13th, 2020.